Hey guys, just to be clear before I get started, this is not at all an attack on those who choose not to have kids, nor is it an attempt to convince Richard and Jasmine to have children, given their obvious disdain for parenting and really just like kids in general. It's pretty clear that they should not have kids.
Two breeders brought their children to a vegan restaurant with them.
Breeders, because that's not alienating at all. You know, that's a really good way, I think, to convince people to go vegan. I mean, it's not like a huge number of people have children or anything. Seems effective.
Their 1-year-old kid was screaming at the top of his lungs. Multiple people actually told the waitress there that they were being annoying. Jasmine went over and told them to keep their kid under control, and then they started a big fight with us. They literally told me that, like, they take priority over everyone else. If anyone has a problem with their children being rude or whatever in public, they're the ones who have to leave, not them. And the lady's husband or whatever, like...
He got really aggressive.
He was getting aggressive with you, and he started screaming at me, too. So I challenged him to a fight outside, and then... After that, he kind of started acting more polite.
So yes, it is incredibly rude for a parent to keep their child in a restaurant when the kid is being disruptive, when the kid is like screaming really loudly, like Jasmine and Richard say. That's absolutely ridiculous. But legally, she is right. It is ultimately up to you to complain to the restaurant manager, and ultimately up to them to either kick these patrons out or leave them in the restaurant. It's not up to you to challenge customers to street fights. Some restaurateurs think it's okay to let their children run amok in the establishment, showing their undercarriage to patrons. It's crazy, it's disgusting, but it's their restaurant. We have a choice not to eat there.
You know, there's an alternative to having children. It's called not having children. And it's fucking spectacular. So, what are some of the negatives?
Well, you don't have a life.
Yeah.
Because every time you go out, your children keep wanting attention, which is normal. They're
Absolutely.
fucking children.
Didn't you just mention that people can have babysitters?
Then don't get fucking children if you can't keep them in check. You gotta be responsible. Is it that difficult to get a babysitter for 1 hour?
Yeah.
And this whole, like, you don't have a life, children are just... they suck your soul out, you know, they take all of your happiness, you'll never be happy again, you'll be depressed, blah blah blah. It's kind of a running theme throughout this video, right? That it seems Jasmine and Richard have no concept of like people having kids and actually kind of liking it. Actually kind of being really happy and really loving their children. Apparently we don't exist.
Just being able to have time for yourself and kind of enjoy a day out, that kind of goes away at least for a good number of years.
Again, babysitters, they do exist. They are a thing. Also, kids aren't just awake 24/7, like they do have to sleep. Babies actually sleep a lot. The average 1-year-old sleeps 14 hours a day. That is quite a bit. My partner and I have plenty of time at night to relax, watch a movie, enjoy each other's company while baby is sleeping. And you can still go out with your kids too. Like, obviously, I feel like parents watching this, and even most of you who don't have kids, it's like, yeah, obviously, I see people out with their children. Obviously, you can still do things with your kids. You know, we go out all the time. We walk around. We go to, you know, do errands and stuff. We don't have a car, so we're like walking everywhere. We, you know, go to restaurants even with baby. There are definitely things that you can still do with your kids. Obviously, you're limited to some degree. There's certain things that you can't do. We don't take baby to the movie theater, right? Like, we don't go see movies, although we didn't really do that anyway. We prefer to stay at home because theater goers can be kind of awful and can kind of ruin movie experiences. Point is, it just depends on what you like to do.
And especially if your children have special needs or problems, like, what is it? Like, an insane amount of children have autism now.
And most children need braces and glasses and stuff nowadays, so... In
most, like, sensible, developed countries, there is a remarkable amount of care provided to kids, even in the US, thanks to Obama. Thanks, Obama. Dental care even, eye care, just, like, all of the medical stuff, the visits and everything, which there are quite a bit of visits in the first, particularly in the first, like, 2 years. Even special needs care, which isn't needed more today, it's just more available, which is awesome. And autism, no, it's not that common, and no, it is not on the rise, as Richard implies. What's happened is that diagnostics has improved, and so now you have kids at the high-functioning end of the spectrum included in the autism diagnosis. You still have less than a 1% chance of having a child on the spectrum.
The cost is just monumental.
Again, in developed countries, medical costs for children are covered unless you're already pretty wealthy.
You know, you're spending quite a bit of money just on a normal child. A normal kid who isn't great at sports, isn't great at academics, has normal sort of health problems or lack thereof. You're spending a good deal of money to begin with.
Yeah.
But factor in, like, maybe your kid is amazing at sports. Okay, well, now you have to buy a shit ton of hockey, football, baseball equipment. You have to pay, like, league fees. You have to drive them all over the place.
Have to buy hockey equipment. We have to do this. We have to do that. Again, it's this underlying kind of theme, I guess, of parenting is awful. Children are awful. They're such a drag. You'll never be happy. You'll always hate it. You know, like, parents don't have to do these things. We don't have to buy the hockey equipment. We want to buy the hockey equipment. We love our children. We want our children to be happy. We're proud of our kids. We want them to excel at the things that they enjoy, the things that they're good at, whether it's hockey, whether it's another sport like music, whatever it is. There's just this huge disconnect here, you know, between the average experience of the parent and this what Richard and Jasmine believe is the average experience, this assumption that they have that we're all just supremely unhappy and we don't like our children, and I guess we regret having children, right? Like, yes, parenting can be really, really hard, but it's also really worth it. Like, a lot of things in life can be a drag, can be really hard, can even be painful, but ultimately are worth it. I would say most of the best things in life require some amount of effort. No, we can't do all of the things that we used to do, most of us. You know, I can't stay up till 4 a.m. playing video games anymore. I can't just waste an entire afternoon watching Game of Thrones anymore. But I don't care, like, at all. You know, like so many others, having a child, choosing to have a child with the person that I chose, the person that I love, is the best thing I've ever done. It's the best decision I've ever made. I'm the happiest. Oh, Jesus. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And if having a kid means I can never play video games again, I can never go to restaurants again, I can never travel again, which obviously it does not, but let's pretend that it did. Oh, okay. Like, I'm totally fine with that. I would choose my kid in a heartbeat over all of that stuff. I will never watch a movie again if it means that I get to keep my kid, because I can't I can't explain it. It's the best. But back to the cost, the monumental cost of having kids. You know, the actual, like, necessary cost of having kids, getting, like, the necessities, it doesn't have to be that high. You just have to be smart about it. You know, we spent less than $1,000 up front, I guess, if you will, like in preparation for baby. So getting, you know, the crib, the car seat, clothing, right? Cloth diapers, stuff like that. We spent less than $1,000. I think the average family spends like $5,000, something like that. So yeah, you know, we were fairly smart about it. And again, we didn't just get necessities. We got like toys and stuff too. We've kind of find that, at least in our case, like, baby is kind of like a cat. They'll kind of play with anything. Like, you don't have to have these expensive, shiny, you know, flashy, talky toys. Like, seriously, our baby's favorite thing is just a pile of burp rags. But again, we get the toys because we want to, because it makes us feel good. It makes me so happy to watch baby play with something new.
A lot of children are accidents. Like, don't do that to your fucking kid. It's not, like...
Definitely.
The children are not asking you to bring them into the fucking world.
Well,
so absolutely, we want people planning their pregnancies, right? We want rates of unplanned pregnancies to drop. It is so much safer all around to plan a pregnancy, right? You can stop drinking before you even try to conceive. You can start eating better. You can start taking a prenatal, right? Which is really important. Not so much for vegans in terms of folate and neural tube defects, because a lot of vegans get a lot of folate from the beans and whatnot that we're eating, but the average American definitely does not, so that's really, really important. You can get genetic testing done if you want. You can get blood work done. Maybe you're concerned that you might be iron deficient or iodine deficient or vitamin D deficient, whatever. And then also there's just the home stuff, the, financial issues. Are you in a stable place with your partner? If you have planned a pregnancy, you probably are, right? You've already thought about that and you've decided that this is a good time to get pregnant. Whereas if you just end up pregnant and you weren't planning on it, you may not be in a good place to have a child. But even if the child wasn't planned, that doesn't mean that they can't grow up and have a good life and even have like a good childhood. I mean, I wasn't planned. I was an accident, whatever you want to call it. But I still overall had a good childhood and I still felt loved. And I'm certainly not mad at my parents for bringing me into this world. I'm very glad that they did. I'm very happy to be alive. I know there are some people who really do feel that way, and it's incredibly sad, and they should definitely seek professional help.
Having children is selfish. There's so many children that don't have any home or parents.
Well, definitely.
Just fucking adopt.
Not adopting could be selfish. Like, let's say that you have the resources to adopt a kid, but instead you choose to waste that money on, I don't know, video games.
I like being able to play video games whenever I want.
Motorcycles.
We recently just got 2 motorcycles.
Yeah, that's pretty selfish. If you aren't interested in adopting for whatever reason, and your options are to either have a child or spend that money on superficial entertainment, there's no difference to the child that you didn't adopt. Not saying that these are the only options, of course. Adopt a kid, have a kid, or waste money on stuff that doesn't matter, right? Obviously, there are people in the effective altruism movement who have decided not to have children because they would rather, work hard and work at jobs that make a good amount of money so they can give a large portion of that money to effective charities. That's pretty awesome and definitely not selfish. But acting as though the choice to amass frivolous things like motorcycles and video games is somehow noble and altruistic, it's pretty ridiculous. It's their life, obviously, and if that's what makes them happy, cool, go for it. But it's not something to brag about. Like, I spent $50 on special edition Blu-ray of Suspiria. Oh my god, can't wait for it. That's not something I would brag about. It's a pretty frivolous thing. I mean, I'm kind of bragging about how awesome I am because I just spent money on something that's totally awesome. I just want you guys to know that I'm cool. That I spend my money on really cool things. It's not cool. That's the sad thing, is that I actually think that's cool. It's not. It's actually pretty dorky. Point is, I'm not a good person for spending $50 on a movie.
We're overpopulated. Why the fuck do you feel so self-entitled to breed? Especially when you're vegan, when you're already aware of what the hell's going on with our planet.
Yeah,
It's so selfish.
I guess they think that the entire world is dealing with overpopulation. Like, somehow them not having children is going to improve the situation in, like, the developing world. Basically, overpopulation in the developed world is a myth. The problem is in developing countries where there are not enough resources for the number of people. Having between 2 and 3 kids does not increase the population of the developed world, and even increasing the population in the developed world is not an issue for human welfare. You could reduce the population by not having any, but if you're vegan, you may just be reducing the population of vegans, which is not necessarily useful. Vegans inspire other people to go vegan, and we are very likely never going to reach a critical mass if we are pushing antinatalist agendas.
There's a huge problem with overpopulation, just the amount of carbon, like the carbon footprint you have just by having children.
Carbon footprint is definitely an issue, of course. It's an issue for having children. It's an issue for, I don't know, using 2 computer screens, buying motorcycles to ride around on, having and feeding dogs, disposing of their waste. So basically, carbon footprint is an issue when it comes to things that you don't like or you don't care about, but when it comes to your own diversions, it doesn't matter. Unnecessary is unnecessary, whether it's a hamburger or it's a computer screen. The only meaningful discussion is one of degree of negative impact. The difference with children, particularly vegan children, is that they could reduce, even negate their carbon footprint by just social interaction and inspiring other people to reduce their impact. Your dogs cannot do that. Your monitors cannot do that. Your motorcycles cannot do that.
To me, it's just a life ruiner. Like, why the fuck would you make yourself go through that? You have so much to live for. Why the hell would you limit yourself with a child?
The thing is just, you're wasting so much of your free time. Like, you wanted to go eat at a restaurant. You wanted to, I don't know, play video games. You wanted to...
Travel?
You can absolutely travel with kids. But if you're so worried about carbon footprint, is traveling the world, like, really an alternative that you're offering? I mean, if kids are really keeping their parents from doing that, then they're actually helping.
Do anything...
Have a career?
Yeah, do anything like that.
Sleep?
No. Like, kids take up a shit ton of your time.
Like,
and
100%.
And again, kids do sleep. They don't just go 24/7, right? Obviously, some kids struggle more than others, but there are things that you can do to increase the chance of your kid sleeping through the night early on. We put ours on a schedule, but like a kind of loose schedule. And we also did the Ferber cry it out method for a few nights. And by 2 months, baby was sleeping through the night.
Yeah, we got this guy. We do sort of have a baby, but, you know, they're kind of less maintenance than actual human children.
Definitely. Like, I want to spend my time devoted to animals and helping them. I don't want to waste my time to a child.
Adopting a couple of dogs is not remotely effective altruism. It seems really nice, but it is not at all the best use of your time or the best use of your money when it comes to helping animals. Especially given one of your dogs was not adopted and can't be vegan. That's a huge problem. I'm not saying that it's wrong to adopt a dog, but to pretend that this is altruistic or really selfless or this is a really good use of money and time, it just isn't.
Speaking of devoting your time to children, like, do you want to clean diapers? Like,
sure
we recently just got 2 motorcycles. You know, which are freaking expensive, and if we had children, we probably wouldn't be able to afford them. And if we had kids, we probably wouldn't be able to ride around as much as we do either.
We wouldn't be able to do anything with kids.
Yeah, like, do you want to clean diapers, or do you want to ride motorcycles?
So I laughed when I first watched this because I really thought that it was a joke. It's not. Richard is serious, and this is basically his whole argument against having kids. It's just, hey, what would you rather do? Change a diaper or ride a motorcycle? because you can't have a kid and own a motorcycle. Like, everyone knows that. Because all parenting consists of is changing diapers and buying hockey equipment, I guess. It'd be adorable if it weren't so sad.
Like, basically every inch of free time goes to the child, especially on a young age. Like, when they're teenagers, less, but that's,
Totally.
15 years or longer from now.
It's interesting how someone with no children, no degree in anything to do with kids, pediatrics, anything, is somehow an expert when it comes to raising children and child development. Interesting. Yes, having kids is hard work, and you will absolutely have less free time than you did before having kids, right? But this doesn't mean that you have no free time. Even when they're very young, you'll still have some free time. Again, a 1-year-old sleeps for 14 hours a day. There's also independent time, which is really, really important from pretty early on to just kind of let them roll around, crawl around, walk around if they're walking, by themselves. Obviously, you don't leave them alone. Like, you're still watching them and making sure they don't get into trouble or hurt themselves or whatever. But, you just kind of let them do whatever and play with whatever. And like, our kid does that for like 1 to 2 hours a day. And I use it like mostly for workout time in the morning. So I'll work out, and it's really fun because whenever I'm like doing something on the floor, like push-ups or something, baby will just come over and like attack me and maul me. And it's really cute. A lot of us, I would say most parents, our priorities change, our interests change dramatically when we have children. The things that bring me the most joy is like the thing I just described, like working out and just babies like attacking me and being adorable, and like, just this mundane stuff, just waking baby up in the morning and seeing that just sweet, happy, adorable face, and watching baby react to the Wishing Tree song from that True show on Netflix that is so adorable. It's baby's favorite thing and it's so cute. Just like watching mediocre Netflix shows with my partner at night. Like that's what I'm into. I guess it's boring, but I don't really care. So to sum it all up, I would much rather change diapers than ride motorcycles.
And especially these days, the chances you're going to have a child with special needs is extremely high.
So this is just total fear-mongering. It's really inexcusable. The risk for any number of conditions, including autism, including Down syndrome, is very, very low. The vast majority of babies are born without any sort of serious health problem.
The hundreds of dollars you're spending, like at least for a child each month, what can that go to?
Motorcycles and video games, apparently. As far as it costing hundreds of dollars a month, again, it depends. Look, if your kid is on formula, if they wear disposable diapers, if they're in childcare, that can really add up, right? But there are certainly lots of ways to reduce costs, even as they get older.
We're kind of brainwashed into having children. Like, I spoke to my doctor about having sterilization for myself, and you literally could not have it done in Belgium unless you've had a child before, or unless you're like after 40 or 50.
Yeah, for women...
And the only reason was, you're gonna have to want children when you're older, trust me. Oh.
This is a tough one, no doubt, but it's one that ultimately can be answered by data. How many women who ask to get sterilized at some point later go on to change their minds? If it's the majority, then doctors have a duty not to sterilize them. Even without this information, I don't think that it's a good idea for doctors to sterilize young women in many cases. Many do seem to change their minds. I did. I said for years that I wasn't going to have children. Even in my mid-20s, I said I wasn't going to have children. It would go against the oath to do no harm to sterilize a woman who might then change her mind and regret it. At the end of the day, it's much less harmful for the few women who won't change their minds to have the minor inconvenience of using birth control for a couple of decades.
I do feel like women are very much pressured to have children.
Yeah, when you say, no, I don't, they just laugh at you.
Yeah.
As if you don't know what you want to do with your own fucking life.
Yeah, I think that's realistic, though. I don't think most people do really know what they want. They think they do, but then we change. I'm a much different person from my teenage self, from my 20-year-old self, even from my 25-year-old self. I mean, just 5 years ago, I was sure I was never having children. I'm not saying that it's okay that doctors are laughing at you. It's absolutely not. But I do understand where they're coming from. Most older adults have met a lot of I'm never going to have children, type of people who then go on to have children. So it's pretty hard to take that sentiment seriously from a 20-something.
Get sucked in by peer pressure. Oh, well, this is what people do at my age, or that's the normal thing to do.
Do people even stop and think about what the fuck their commitment is gonna be to this? I feel like people just get pregnant because it's like a hype, and they're like, oh yeah, this is really cool in my life, having a child, and they have a child and they're depressed as fuck.
Yeah.
They're like, what the fuck have I done?
Yeah.
And then they regret for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Depression after pregnancy is a very real thing, too. Having children is not fun.
Peer pressure is no doubt a problem and should absolutely be taken seriously. Nobody should feel pressured to stay in a relationship that they would otherwise leave because their parents want them to have babies, basically. They want them to hurry up and settle down. That's terrible. But that doesn't mean that everyone regrets their kids. I mean, given that women in the developed world wish they had more kids, it's pretty clear that regret is not common. And if someone really does regret having their kids, they should absolutely seek help for that. They should absolutely feel comfortable talking to a professional about that. And that feeling of regret, it is common. It is one of the things that's common with postpartum depression, which again is something you should absolutely seek help for. And if you go to your doctor, they will give you a questionnaire and ask you certain questions to see if you do have it, 'cause it is fairly common. But even if you don't have that, you're probably going to have, the baby blues, as they call it, which is like the first 2 weeks or so after you give birth, where you just feel sad and not very good. I guess it's kind of a mild form of postpartum depression. But, this isn't caused by the baby. This is just your hormones going insane, right? And it's not something that lasts. And again, if it is something that lasts, you should absolutely get help for that, and maybe, get on medication, just talk to a professional. But yeah, like baby blues is not something that lasts. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the process is not fun. Like for me, a lot of women really like being pregnant. I did not. It was not for me. It was not fun. It was really hard. And I was really tired, and I hated food, and it sucked. Talked about that a lot. The labor process I did not enjoy, although that was by far the easiest part for me. The temporary hair loss, yeah, that was not fun. But I mean, it was all worth it. Like as hard as that first month after the birth was, where I just felt weird and sad and anxious. Even that time, like, okay, I would do it all over again.
And going through the pain of like bearing a child in childbirth, why the hell would you want to go through that? Just adopt a kid if you want one so bad.
Yeah, and
like I know the procedure can be a pain in the ass and expensive, but you really think having a
child
child
isn't cheap to begin with. So
if you can't afford adoption, then why the hell would you have a child?
If you can't afford to adopt a child, don't have a child yourself.
Having a child is easier than adopting a baby, which is expensive and involves long waiting lines, and it might not even be available to people with certain like alternative lifestyles, like people who aren't religious or people who are vegan. It's not just about what you can afford. Adopting an older child can be cheap or free through foster care, but not everybody can do that. I mean, it takes a certain kind of person with a certain amount of patience to be able to go through that. Not everybody feels that they can bond in the same way with an older child or even with an adopted baby. Many people really want to have a child of their own, and they would feel immense loss if they could not.
Just having gross, disgusting, loose, saggy skin.
When you talk about children, also with doctors, they don't tell you enough about your risks and what you're going to actually go through. Like everyone makes it look like it's all sunshine and flowers.
What? Who says that? When is it ever portrayed like that? I mean, even in movies get so much wrong about pregnancy and birth, but there's always the woman screaming her head off. Like it's obvious to everyone that childbirth is incredibly painful and incredibly risky. I don't know anyone who thinks it's sunshine and flowers.
Just not liking the look of your body either. Again, there's cosmetic issues like loose, saggy skin, stretch marks. Do you want that?
It's crazy. Like most people follow these like Instagram models and stuff, and they all think I'm gonna be like that, and it's like, no. You're not.
No.
Do they really? I don't know. I mean, if that's true, that's really sad. I didn't. I mean, I looked into a lot of stuff. I was pretty prepared. I forgot about the hair loss. That sucked. But that's temporary, obviously. But I lucked out. I look like virtually the same as I did before pregnancy. Good genes. But yeah, some women do end up with, some pretty serious scarring that fades but doesn't go away completely, or they have extra weight that they just can't seem to lose. But I'm sure if you ask them if it was worth it, they would say yes.
What's having a child really going to do for you? It's not going to give you extra free time. It's not going to give you extra money.
It's not going to give you very positive social interactions, if that's what
you're
hoping for.
Your social life is going to go down the toilet, at least for a while, until your kids grow up.
Assuming you planned financially, which, again, hopefully you would. Hopefully you'd be planning a pregnancy and making sure that you can afford a baby, a child, right? A human. Then you can absolutely have extra money for other things. And you can still have social interactions, obviously, even with people who you were friends with before. There are plenty of assuming you're not in like a rural area, if you're in a city, there are lots of like mommy meetups and mommy stroller walking things, and even like workout. There's one class where like you use the stroller to kind of do like leg extensions and stuff like that, if you're into that sort of thing. Maybe you have to make some new friends, but like, since when is that a bad thing? Your life doesn't end when you procreate, when you have a child. And if you really, really believe that, then please, please do not have kids.
I know some people absolutely love children and they love the whole process, but I know there's a lot of people out there who wouldn't, and they don't know it yet.
And regret it.
Yeah.
Especially dads.
Yeah.
Because women tend to have more of that thing of like, I want to be a mom, but
I mean,
they usually just do it to make their girl happy, and that's it.
Hear that, dads? You didn't really want your kids, you know, the kids that you love so dearly. No, you did it to make your girl happy. I can't say I'm surprised by this sentiment. Richard has expressed the same sort of MGTOW bullshit in the past, so yeah, not surprising. Look, I mean, I'm sure this has happened. I'm sure it does happen, but to say that most men don't want their kids based on no evidence whatsoever is really naive and really insulting.
And if you want a child, adopt one. They need it.
Yeah.
That child would be very grateful to you to not breeding, but adopting.
Yeah.
If you're adopting a baby, then no, the child probably wouldn't be grateful because babies are in pretty high demand. Due to the shortage of babies, it's very likely that adopting them just feeds into the fertility clinics and surrogate businesses by making them more viable options. So you're not necessarily decreasing the number of kids in the world by adopting. And this isn't an issue like with cats and dogs, where they are literally in such a surplus that they are being euthanized in shelters where they're not being adopted. Adopting an older fostered child from the system? That's great. They're obviously not being saved from death, but being bounced around in orphanages or foster care is obviously not a good life. But it's bullshit to say that this is the same as having a baby and raising it from a young age. It's not just because of ego. It takes a special kind of person to be able to take, you know, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, even older into your home, a kid that's likely has some behavioral issues from where they grew up, growing up in the system, possibly from the parents who maybe lost custody. Being able to help them and provide a stable and loving environment, having the patience and compassion to do that, that is absolutely incredible. But let's be honest, not many people can do it.
Yeah, and it's not selfish to, like, say, you know, I don't want to have children, I want to live the life I want to live. Like, if you want more free time and money, the fuck's wrong with that?
So basically, you think that children are so desperate for adoption and that it's wrong to instead have a child, like instead of adopting. But it's fine for you to, instead of adopting, waste your money on motorcycles and video games and just things that you like, things that you enjoy. And that's not selfish. That's pretty much the definition of selfish.
Yeah, so those are all things to think about. I'm sure not too many people really talk about that.
Well, most people just get offended as fuck.
People get offended when you call them breeders and question the value of their children in the world? Who would have thought? So finally, the I hate kids kind of stuff that they say at least a couple times. At least Jasmine says it, and Richard said it in the past, and worse. I find that really disturbing. I hope they're being hyperbolic. I really hope so. But, you know, I get not liking being around a lot of kids because kids are loud, they're obnoxious, they have no filters, you know, not all of them, but they can be, right? You know, even the best kids are like that some of the time. Right? And probably more likely when you're out and about in a restaurant setting and maybe the kid would usually have a nap at this time, so they're acting out or they're hungry, right? Whatever. You know, kids can be stinky, all those kinds of things. So I get that. But hate? Like, really? You really hate an entire group of people? Like, would you say that about any other group? People with autism? People with Down syndrome? Like, no, probably not, because you would recognize that that's incredibly offensive and wrong, but hating kids, somehow okay. Again, I hope they're exaggerating because it's not normal. It's not normal to hate a being that can't help being obnoxious, not having filters, right? Because its brain isn't fully formed, isn't fully developed. It's just as ridiculous as hating a dog for barking or hating a cat for hissing or scratching or whatever. And it can't be good for them. Like, it can't be good for, there's a baby, that's appropriate given the topic. It can't be good for Richard and Jasmine, anyone else feeling like this, you know, to have that kind of hate in your heart, if you will. It can't feel good. It can't be good for your mental health to feel like that. I don't know. If it were me, I would be seeking professional help. Anyway, I guess this is the finally, I lied the first time, I'm sorry. This is finally number 2. This could have been a good video. It's a shame. It could have been a good video because there are things that are worth talking about, and there are things that they touch on briefly, you know, talking about the peer pressure and how people should not be pressured, especially by their family, to settle down as quick as possible and just pick someone, you know, and settle for someone who you otherwise wouldn't, because you feel this pressure to go ahead and have children and start a family. You know, that's really awful. Again, they touched on, you know, unplanned pregnancies. They didn't really talk about it in any sort of meaningful way, but the importance, again, of planning a pregnancy. And also that, you know, we shouldn't be shaming people who really don't want to have kids or believe that they would not be good parents, or maybe they have something genetic that they don't want to pass on. We should not be shaming them for not having kids. I think people who recognize that they would not be good parents, I think that's awesome that they recognize that and then don't have kids. They're doing the right thing. So the video could have been that, which would have been awesome, but instead we get clean diapers or ride motorcycles and lots of fear-mongering when it comes to like autism and other disorders, and lots of anger, lots of defensiveness. Yeah, it's a shame, I guess. And I'm sure some of you who don't have kids, I'm sure this is probably upsetting to you, because I'm sure that a lot of you do not feel this way. You don't hate children. You don't, you know, you just don't want kids, and you don't think that it would, you know, it would harm your life. Jesus, really? Right? It would affect your quality of life or whatever your reason is. And that's totally fine. And you don't spout this nonsense. So it's really unfortunate. It hurts veganism, I think, because we already do have so much misanthropy tied to veganism, at least in terms of certain like vocal vegans. And that's very unfortunate. And yeah, I think in terms of people who are not anti-natalists but just don't want kids, I don't think you guys need more of this kind of negative shit. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. Comments or questions down below, that's cool. And if you want to subscribe, that's cool as well. And if you want to support the channel, that is also very, very cool. You can do so at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. Thank you again, and I will have a new video very soon. Honestly, the main thing I miss about video games, not that I miss, the main thing I'm looking forward to, because every once in a while I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I haven't played Breath of the Wild. I didn't get to play The Last Guardian. You know, I'm such a huge Shadow of the Colossus fan, so like, oh man. And Ico, doesn't matter. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, you know, that'd be fun to play those. But honestly, the main thing I'm looking forward to is just being able to play with my kid and like teach my kid how to play and be like, hey, how about this game that's totally old now, but I'm going to make you play it because it was my favorite game, because that's what you do as a parent. Yeah, it's just going to be so much fun.